And so from the vantage point of the soul's evolution and growth, this can actually be a very fertile ground for self-cultivation and growth and evolution. And you know, the difficult journey of having people who you are parts of as a child, and similarly, you know, to have the reflection of a child who is a piece of you in a sense as well. Like that degree of reflection isn't offered by that many people. You know, whether we have positive or negative relationships, and whether or not the things that get reflected are good, bad, ugly, beautiful, challenging, or easy, no one's going to reflect that quite as much as those people that are close to you, and those people that gave you this body that your soul kind of hijacked to go on its journey. And Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. So I'm talking on behalf of Rajni tonight. She's a little bit exhausted after the festivities with baby in tow. So Merry Christmas, and for next week, Happy New Year. It's a busy time of year, and also a very challenging time of year for many people. So Rajni gave tonight's topic. We're going to be talking a little bit about just why this time of year can be deeply triggering for many people, and can stir up and stimulate lots of things, and perhaps how meditation and staying centered and just being aware of those tendencies can be useful to stay centered and grounded through the silly season. For members, we have a retreat starting tomorrow. So a little bit last minute opportunity if anyone does want to come and do some Guru Karya, even for a day. So that might be UD, even if you want to pop in for one day over the next couple of days, that would be awesome. Also Sally and a few of the other locals who are in the area, that'd be great. So just reach out and let us know. We have a retreat 11th through the 15th of January. We're looking for a volunteer, and also the 8th through the 12th of February, we're still looking for a volunteer to come and support those retreats. So please reach out if you want to come and be of assistance, even if it's just for a few days. So the silly season, family, life, this crazy stuff that's going on at the moment in the world. Many of the imbalances, I won't use the word imbalance, many of the challenges that we face going through life, the imprints of the different energy centers correlate and correspond to often familial situations. Now, there's a unique karma between those souls that gather together into a family setting, and often there's a large amount of karma that needs to be cleared between parents and children, obviously, the parents giving the child a body, and siblings, you know, giving the child the robust, often challenging upbringing. And so the first one I'll tackle is obviously the parents, mum and dad, give the body for a child. And so that body comes with a bunch of karma from all of the ancestors. The soul is beyond the body per se. So much of the inheritance of the physical structure, the inheritance of that physical structure comes at a cost. I mean, it just like you want a gesturing for a smartphone. I don't have one. It's using as a hotspot or some device, a microphone that's probably, these are made in Australia maybe, but some things might be made in China. And then, well, the karma of those products is that somebody has to make it in a factory somewhere, somebody else has to make the plastics, somebody else has to make the electronics, someone else assembles it, someone else puts it into a package and ships it halfway around the world. So everything in our life, material-wise, has consequence beyond the locale of that particular object. The body just doesn't give rise to itself out of nothing. There is the physical intimacy of the parents that gives rise to the physical structure. So, well, what enabled the parents' life to be lived? Their own parents, to start with, but also all of those things that supported and kept those beings alive during their life right up until that moment of conception. So this physical structure, we can often kind of identify with it. I am this body. This is me. And the truth of the matter is that it's, well, kind of convenient, but it's not the absolute truth. The absolute truth is that the body is a consequence of large systems beyond most of our awareness most of the time. Now, that's not a good or a bad thing. It just is a thing. And just like having a smartphone that's made in China isn't a bad thing. I mean, that factory that assembles a smartphone employs some people, but maybe the conditions aren't awesome, so there's room for improvement, or maybe the conditions are bordering on slavery, and in which case it's, you know, maybe unethical. There's consequence to all of the things that we do in the world, and as we begin to understand that there is a consequence and a backstory to every small thing, the mind likes to cut it out from its backdrop. But as we understand that deeper layer of interrelationship between things, we can start to see patterns begin to emerge, a certain degree of lawfulness. You know, for instance, if one is made aware of the different industries that go into supporting, you know, their gadget or a car or something like that, it might lead one to make more ethical decisions around what thing to buy, but it also might change the relationship to those particular objects. Rather than thinking it's just a piece of stuff, well, it's something that was made by humans, you know, even if those humans assembled robots or whatever, but the stuff was made and fabricated. There's an embodied energy inside of that. This body is the first material thing that we come. It's the dwelling place of the soul. So the mindsets and the particular mental afflictions or dispositions of the parents whilst they're conceiving, as well as the intergenerational stuff that goes on in our ancestry, gives us sometimes physical advantage, desirable traits, but also sometimes, you know, a predisposition to get a dodgy knee because of bow legs or something like that, or a predisposition for certain diseases, certain ailments. You know, this stuff isn't really that controversial from a scientific point of view. You know, in the science literature, they talk about epigenetics, and the epigenetics are around the ability of our lifestyle to impact the expression of certain genes. And there's, I believe that there's good evidence to show that the choices, the lifestyle choices our grandparents make will change the gene expression of our own generation. So, you know, whether or not your grandparents were engaged in high intensity activity or led a very sedentary life, the flow-on effect of that is that your body, not you, but your body will be enduring the consequence of other people's decisions. When you've got no, you know, like you're not like physically reared by them, they didn't conceive you, right? They conceived your parents. And that means also that the flow-on effect is that the choices that an individual make will be experienced by way of the different genes that are expressed, in progeny down the line. So when we begin to talk and look at this from the perspective of the meditation, where we're looking at the energy of the heart chakra, the heart center, that is a place where relationships between parents and children, and between child or between father and son or daughter and so on, that's an area that can be heavily constricted if there is a challenging relationship there. The relationship that plays out, that one witnesses at the heart chakra, you can witness the parents and internalize those as a symbol for your own inner self. So often the feminine, the mother, will give rise to an understanding of your own emotional body, and your father will give you a glimpse or an insight into your own intellect. And so literally those two beings who have got different bodies got together, and you're the union of both. And you take some of the good from either, and also say some of the challenging stuff. And the belief from the meditation perspective to view oneself as a soul is that you actually go on a journey as a soul to take those qualities from your parents, not to have the best possible life, but to endure the karma that you need to in order that you can arise and awaken into consciousness, and evolve and transcend beyond the mundane. So the soul is on a very expansive, long evolutionary journey. The playing field for a moment is this body, and so the soul adopts this meat suit, this body, to enact its karma and go through life. And some of the karma that we are owed is not necessarily pleasant, and we don't necessarily need to look far to understand why we might have to endure negative karma or difficult circumstances. Put shit out, shit comes back. Now, the belief with a reincarnating worldview is that, well, if you put shit out in one lifetime, you might have to endure that in a subsequent lifetime. And so that larger understanding of one's evolutionary journey gives rise to the knowledge that, gives some level of satisfaction, or not satisfaction, but sense of comfort, perhaps, if one sits there and goes, why on earth is this happening to me and not someone else? You don't know the karma. Most of us don't have a glimpse into the karma of our past life. Now, beings whom have gone deep with meditational practice can begin to awaken a sense or an impression or ability to see a being's past life, normally for other people, more so than themselves. And so that knowledge of what you have done is deliberately hidden from you, because otherwise you would be paralyzed waiting for the next slap in the face, knowing what you got up to in the last life. Even if you just went to the grave knowing the dodgy shit that we've done in this life, knowing like, oh God, like I might be in for a rough one with the way that I've treated some people, next incarnation, like you don't live at ease if you're constantly fearful from that past karma, or you're anticipating what's coming into the future. So on top of the soul's evolutionary journey, then there is the karma of the physical stuff, the physiological meat suit that has embedded energy in it that might manifest as particular gifts or restrictions. Okay, so silly season, we come in, what do? Many people will go home and spend time with their parents. okay? And so the home is where the heart is. And so that return journey to go and spend time with the close family, and it's not a rule, not everybody has or wants to or does, but it's a very common thing at this time of year to go there and to engage in activities and make time for family. And so, one can be then given a very harsh reflection of like, oh, okay, you didn't spend your year with your parents, but here you go. Here are two beings who literally were God of your body. Out of them, your body emerged, and you chose them, and here you are. All of your stuff is right in the face, and so from the vantage point of the soul's evolution and growth, this can actually be a very fertile ground for self-cultivation and growth and evolution. And the difficult journey of having people who you are parts of as a child, and similarly, to have the reflection of a child who is a piece of you in a sense as well. Like that degree of reflection isn't offered by that many people. Whether we have positive or negative relationships, and whether or not the things that get reflected are good, bad, ugly, beautiful, challenging, or easy, no one's going to reflect that quite as much as those people that are close to you, and those people that gave you this body that your soul kind of hijacked to go on its journey. And so the point from the vantage point of taking oneself as a soul and attempting to transcend bodily consciousness and to transcend the mundane suffering reality, is to watch oneself in those circumstances that give rise to the impulse to choke someone, the impulse to scream, the impulse to get into an argument or fight or bicker or push or test or surface childhood unpleasantries or to hold resentment, right? The vantage point from consciousness and going forward is watching and then making a choice on how one wants to act. And so there can be very convincing arguments thrown from the emotional body about how justified we are, how badly we've been wronged, and how how horrible these parents have treated us, or how my dad just doesn't get it, or it's like my mum's like this or something. It's the emotions can grip us, and the trap of the heart chakra is to have those emotions grab us and make us feel unbalanced. Now, where is that heart nestled? The heart is nestled in the lungs. What do the lungs do? They breathe, right? They take the air element in and out and in and out. And what does the heart do? It beats in, pumps, right? So the air element moves side to side. Our weather comes in from the west. And that air element, if we're a bit airy, if the air element is disturbed, then we get blown around and we get taken for float off somewhere else, and then next minute we're over here. It's kind of a bit of like a tornado or a hurricane. And that's what it can be for many people returning home after spending a large time away from parents. Return home, and then the air element can get exacerbated. Too much air with the fire element below, and it'll burn the house down. Okay, not enough air, and you won't be able to speak. If you just take a short breath, you can't actually speak your truth. So learning to actually breathe through the physical yogic activity gives you the vitality and the openness to be able to hold your chest out and to articulate and to share. And what do we do when we crouch down and the emotions are triggered? It can be very compressive, and we can stifle our breath. Often when people get anxious, it's a hyperventilating. Respiratory depression people get so relaxed, especially with like a heroin overdose, so relaxed that they stop breathing, not enough breath. So why is the heart chakra and coming home relevant at Christmas? Well, let's zoom out and look at who was born on Christmas. Was Christ. So, you know, love him, believe in him, don't believe in him. He's had an impact on our culture. And 2,000 years later, we are the inheritors of the Judeo-Christian values that were cultivated first in Judaism, and then kept alive in Christianity and developed and grown into different areas. So even as an atheist or someone who doesn't believe in that, you don't have to believe in a metaphysical aspect of Christ, but no one can deny the impact that Christianity has had on our culture. Whether or not you like it or not, that's another thing. But schools, hospitals, our science, all of these great modern things actually have their roots in the Christian church. So things that we take for granted came together around these Christian institutions. And what was Christ renowned for? The power of forgiveness, the ability to, forgive them for they know not what they do, like to forgive people who literally crucified him. And so that sets really the high watermark, or like the kind of the aspirational embodiment that many of us can aspire to learn to embody the power of forgiveness at that heart center. Now we throw in that little bit of yogic knowledge that I've just shared regarding parents. How difficult is it to forgive a parent? It's easy to forgive someone who cuts you off in traffic and then goes, "Oh, sorry, I cut you off. I didn't see you." And then you just like, "Oh, okay, no problems. No, I'm not particularly highly strung on the road, but a little bit of a wave and everything's kind of disarmed." Now, for people who've had a challenging upbringing or a difficult relationship with parents, testing relationship with parents can often be a very difficult space for forgiveness. But it's like deep in the heart. And some of the practical wisdom around how to actually embody forgiveness rather than to just hold on to resentment. Well, first you forgive for yourself, because if you hold on to that rage, resentment, pain, you're the one that will suffer, not the other person. And what is the leading cause of death for older men? I'm pretty sure plenty of women too. It's heart disease, it's heart attacks, right? And what's one of the largest contributing factors? Psychological stress. So not forgiving puts you at risk of carrying this psychic burden that literally disrupts the physical heart. So when we say, embody forgiveness, it's medicine, it's preventative medicine that keeps the heart chakra pacified, and it softens the entire being and reduces the psychological or the physiological and psychological stress. Now, in terms of actually forgiving, how do you do that? Well, some great advice that's been given by Swamiji is to not focus upon forgiving the individual person for a specific thing that they've done, though there might be a desire to do that. To cultivate I forgive everybody for everything. I'm not going to carry anything. That's the basis. That's the start point, is forgive everybody. You don't try and work up to the top of the mountain. You get parachuted to the top of it. And you go, well, I forgive everybody anything, and I'm a forgiving person. And what that does is that sends an invitation to your own soul to show you where you're holding all the resentment towards others. And then as you slowly begin to see that, I'm resentful here, I'm frustrated with this person still, this one's coming up, then you know that the answer, you've started with open hands, you've started with empty hands, I'm going to forgive everything. And when you notice yourself holding on to something, you let go. And bit by bit, that sense of forgiveness becomes a virtue that's embodied inside of you, then it becomes even increasingly easier to forgive yourself for all of the dodgy things that you've done, which I've done plenty of dodgy things in my life. And it's way easier to forgive somebody else because I just assume that they were ignorant. Many times the dodgy things I did, I kind of knew that I was not being my best me whilst I was doing them. There was still the voice of conscience that came through. So it's actually a more difficult thing to forgive oneself. Practically, how do you find the strength? Are you ever going to find the strength to forgive? Maybe. You might just love Jesus so much that you're so inspired by him that you just know that forgiveness is the answer. Also, you might find yourself knowing that forgiveness is the answer, but knowing that you don't have the strength to do that yet. I reckon an honest self-understanding is way better than deceiving oneself, and recognizing that you're having a hard time forgiving somebody. Go, look, the self-narrative can be something like, I'm struggling to forgive this person because I still hold the rage that they acted like this towards me. In which case, you can ask for the strength to forgive. And you can pray for that if you have a prayer practice, or you can ask that of your soul. You can take yourself into meditation, make an offering of that forgiveness, and ask to receive that strength to endure or to forgive or to give that virtue out. And what I've noticed since I've made a concerted effort of asking for the strength that I need, rather than, oh, I just want this problem to go away, it's like, give me the strength to be able to forgive. I'm noticing that I'm getting stronger with it. And I'm also taking pressure off my system, because I'm not going, oh, I said I forgive this person, so it should never come back into my mind ever again. It's like, no, that's something that I'm working on. And I know that the direction that I want to take that is to a place of ultimate forgiveness. One of the other things that tends to get really stirred up at Christmas and New Year's and this kind of thing is the throat chakra. And the throat chakra can be very much related to relationships with siblings. In that sea of, if, there's, presuming there are siblings, it's not only that impacts it, but often in situations where there are many siblings, there can be a fighting for the attention of the parents. Hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. The parents choosing to ignore one or favor one, and so finding one's expression and one's voice amongst other children, other siblings, can mean that the throat chakra gets constricted, and one can learn to suppress or not even acknowledge their own feeling and truth. It's not just enough to have that feeling. That energy needs to be let out in conversation with people. And so, you see that happening, quintessential kind of like bad Christmas lunch. It's like, siblings having a spat or something like that, and things devolving into hostility or repressed emotion coming out at the dinner table after a few beers. And so, like, those that bottling up and that constriction is not healthy for the situation for anyone. And to endure that for decades, even rather than just years, the suppression here in that process of opening and finding one's voice, sometimes a lot of shit has to come out. Like, there's a lot of bottled up stuff that has to be regurgitated or like kind of let back out in order for some purity to come back through. What I believe is, obviously we really believe in the Himalayan meditation because it balances everything in one activity, because it's just the nature of this practice. When you surrender, when you let go of the tension, when you let go of that, you're forced to establish a self-relationship. You quiet you quiet the mind down through the meditation, and instead of needing to speak your truth, you begin to hear it manifest inside, right? Organ of action for the space element, the throat chakra, is the tongue. So that's how you make that. How do you receive sound and space into you? It's through the ears. So just quietening oneself for 30 minutes a day puts you into a receptivity mode. And, you know, people know this when they go to listen to music or go to concerts or that kind of thing. So in those tense encounters where your siblings might be triggering your throat chakra, or your heart might be getting wrenched around like it's in a washing machine because of, you know, long-standing unresolved issues or manipulations or things that have gone down in the family, it can be, what I believe is the best thing is to draw your strength from the boss, to take the energy straight up and ask for that help from the soul. Okay, and that's where this soul-based meditation, we believe, really does, and we experience it. We don't just believe it, we experience it. When you get that relationship to the soul, you're about to say something dumb, and then the soul comes through and it maybe pulls you back from the edge. Or you're about to suppress your emotions again, and then the soul comes through and it says, not today, I'm going to speak my truth. I need to say it today. And then the truth comes out, and a relationship can be healed or repaired or connected. And so wherever the silly season has taken you over the last few days, thank you also for those who have tuned in on the catch up on YouTube. But wherever the silly season may have taken you this last couple of days, you're not out of the woods yet. We've still got New Year's. We've still got, you know, for many, family holidays and these sort of quite challenging environments where there is a lot of triggering stuff around on the home front. And, you know, we encourage and implore everybody who has the tools of something like meditation to double down on them and use them as a stabilizing force, so that you can be a place where other people can come up for a breath of fresh air, and to seek you out as that little bastion of peace and quiet, maybe in and amongst the chaos. So best of luck with that, and we'll jump into the meditation, and then we will have a quiet exit. So I'm going to have a ding and then quiet this down, and there'll be 3 bells to finish. Thank you.